You read a list I read because I don't.
By the way, Spice.
I don't think Assassin's Creed deserves the list, but
in contrast to what Baggins says, Mega Man absolutely deserves to be on that list.
Yeah, Baggins was taking things literally.
Well, I mean, so was I.
Yeah.
But,
yes. You guys were taking things literally in different ways.
Yeah.
Speaking of, where is he? 1 second.
And we are live. Oh, Smash Brothers is playing in the background, which, my goodness, that was an amazing entry. But it definitely improved a lot.
Although I think a better list would be, why didn't this get a sequel?
Hey, that's a perfect setup for another episode.
Well, I'm just thinking another episode could be
whilst I have you both here.
All right.
And things aren't, we're not on the topic yet. I'm trying to do a list for top 10 cakes in gaming. Right now I have Portal, Super Mario RPG, and Minecraft.
No Mario 64?
Well, I have a one per franchise rule.
Fair
also,
enough.
do we ever even see that cake?
No, it's
It's a phantom cake.
Phantom cake.
I don't want phantom cake. So, do you guys have any other cakes you can think of?
Undertale has a cake, but it's just a healing item.
That's fine.
Oh, what about the pie though? The pie is a better fit for that.
Pies aren't cakes. That's insane.
Cake.
Fair enough. They're superior to cake.
By the way,
what are we talking about?
One of the next list after doors I want to do is cakes in gaming. Right now I have Portal, Super Mario RPG, and Minecraft.
I was gonna say Super Mario RPG. Okay.
I honestly can't think of any other cakes off the top of my head. What about pancake? Would you count a pancake?
Why?
Why?
Isn't there one in World of Warcraft?
Because in Rhapsody, one of the attack spells drops a giant pancake on the screen and hits all the enemies.
That sounds amazing, and I might have to consider it.
Isn't there a game that has a cake bomb?
It sounds true. And I know there's something with Kirby, but I'm going to have to figure that one out.
Well, Mega Man doesn't have a cake man, so...
Surprisingly.
Doesn't he?
How is there not like a Cook Man or something like that?
Some of the fan games, I think, have one or two.
Oh, Stardew Valley. The pink cake is actually kind of a big deal in it.
Okay.
I mean, a big deal? I mean, it's a deal.
Not a big deal. It matters.
Yeah.
And, it's like one of the characters' favorites. And...
There's definitely a cake in Warcraft and some feast table. I'll need to go find it.
Uh-oh. Jordan, I just found an article.
What?
The 9 most iconic cakes in gaming.
Well, we're going to go one beyond.
Is there a cake in TF2 anywhere?
Yes! No, wait, that's the chocolate bar.
The deluxe bar.
But he might have a cake that he could eat.
So now should I not mention any that are mentioned in here?
Yeah, don't. I purposely don't go looking for lists.
Dang it, because there's a couple of good ones.
Like if you think they're iconic, they're iconic. Just don't tell me they're from that list.
Well, one of them is a meme.
There, I just posted the pancake attack in the general chat for us.
Okay, let's see this.
By the way, while I have you all here, I got my car back. I got everything back together.
Nice.
I had to do an alignment check. Something got knocked out of alignment. The body shop didn't do that, and I paid for that myself, but it was relatively cheap.
Yeah, alignment's not too bad,
so-
but still not fun.
Well, yeah,
Everything's...
alignments are necessary because things wear out.
Yeah, my front tires were starting to wear out on the inside. There was definitely something wrong, so I had to get it done.
Well, then That's good.
But everything is back in order, thankfully.
Yeah,
Great.
Although the insurance shafted me out of an extra day of the rental.
That's too bad.
Great.
Dipsticks. I could probably complain. I should. They're expecting me not to.
Do it.
So. But I'm looking at tentatively heading up there on the 16th. If I did that, Lee, I would head out to your place on the 21st.
Sure you want to say this conversation live, dude?
Are we live?
Yeah,
we're live.
I said it twice.
I didn't know we were live.
Yeah, let's not discuss.
I didn't think we were live yet because we didn't do our intros.
But no, like we're not recording yet. It's not the official thing, but we pre stuff. Kamizad, are you still there? We gotta get volumes correct.
Kamizad's not here at all.
He's not coming.
Yeah, but he's in chat.
Ah.
He's at work.
Okay. Well, then
Speaking of which,
stay afterwards, and I'll nail it down for you.
if someone goes to rewatch one of these videos, does it have this beginning part in it?
It can, but I can also remove it, which is what I do.
Ah, okay.
What the devil?
So I'm curious, what do you think of the pancakes?
Sorry, I haven't seen it yet. I'm trying to get the announcements
Granted,
out.
it's a still image, so
Oh,
it's not as fun as seeing the whole thing fall
well, that's
down.
a big pancake.
But yeah, it's on top of all the enemies. It's kind of a funny attack.
Not the devil in my throat, although we're getting over that. No. Kamizite, how's the volume for everyone? You've heard us talking. Anyone sound too low, too high? Oh, also, you guys need to check out Penny Arcade today.
They're still running?
Oh, yeah. And it's really important for you and Breakfast to check it out.
I don't know what their website
Chat
is.
is disabled, so it might be hard for him to respond. I mean, I guess he could respond to us in Discord, but...
Well, he's responding to us over YouTube.
Well,
Oh, it's got a hyphen in.
Yes, Penny-Arcade.
I don't really read. I've never really read Penny Arcade.
It's okay.
So.
Don't worry. That's not important. The important thing is that
how do
you
you
read
spell
today's.
hyphen? Just kidding.
Which is why I never really got any of the jokes involving Tycho in Poker Night.
I mean, it's really not. There really wasn't anything involving.
I got the gist of them, but I didn't understand why he was the way he was.
Yeah, he's just sort of the fancy pants writer.
Okay, where do I find the comic?
It just says "Wed" on it for Wednesday's comic.
Oh my gosh! Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Don't spoil it for Brett.
That's full circle, man.
I know,
God.
right?
Oh my gosh.
Is there any sort of cake in Earthbound?
We need Ross to come join us.
No. He's part of the problem. All right. Now I
Is
just
there
got
any sort of cake in Earthbound?
feels like there should be.
There should be, but I can't remember off the top of my head. If it is, it's not anything like important, and it'd only be text.
What about Peach's birthday cake in it's one of the Mario parties.
So I right now have a no duplicates rule.
What's the duplicate?
like
Super
from the
Mario
same
RPG?
from the same franchise.
Oh, okay.
Right now, I might.
I mean, that is the more iconic one, but still.
Yeah, it's something. It's a holdover from the Screw Attack days, and I do like it as a rule. I think it's pretty good. Lunasar could be louder. Okay, I can fix that.
I don't get this joke.
You don't remember the brownies with nuts debacle at Quark?
No, I don't.
Lines were drawn. Blood was shed.
It was dumb.
It was dumb.
I left. I was busy, so I wasn't watching the club for a little bit. And when I come back, there had been an entire incident.
Was I there? I didn't go to every event.
Well, it wasn't at an event. It was on the forums.
Oh, I didn't read every page either.
It just.
It wasn't.
It was
in the
a
forums,
shout box
it was in
fight.
the shout box.
Yeah.
Oh, then I probably missed it entirely. I don't recall this at all.
Is there a cake in the Arkham games?
There might be.
It seems like something the Joker would do. Is there a cake at the party at the end of Asylum?
I don't think so. Why is this not working? Oh, well, we just don't have chat then. I don't know. For some reason, chat doesn't want to work. Whatever. All right. Let's get this started. Here we go. So, when Smash 4 was coming out, we had our local Smash League and everything, and we were quite happy with it. And Smash 4 was coming out on the DS first, then on the Wii U. And I didn't want to require everyone to have a DS, and that sort of goes against the whole idea of playing in person anyway. So I decided to host the most complicated Smash League we had ever had. It was the Legacy Smash League. And we would rotate through Smash 64, Smash Melee, and Smash Brawl on our way to waiting for Smash 4 to come out. And this was a lot of fun, if complicated, because a lot of people hadn't played any Smash game before Brawl. And I had hosted back in the Melee days as well. But I had forgotten. Smash 64, I played the crap out of it when it was live. Going back to it after Melee and Brawl, that game is rough going back to it after Melee and Brawl. You feel like you are playing the slowest paced game. Like, the characters are all in molasses and just nothing's responsive. And as slow as it is, like watching it, it feels even slower when you're playing it. Has anyone gone back to Smash 64?
Oh, of course. Of course. It's a classic, man. And,
It's
you know,
been a
I gotta
long
teach the kids,
time.
man. You gotta teach the kids the
You're
classics.
not wrong that it's rough.
Yeah, it's
Just to go back to, though, when it first
Yeah.
came out,
Oh.
it was amazing.
Oh yeah, like that's the thing. It's one of those things that in a vacuum it was fine. It was only, especially the jump to Melee, especially because Melee, we went from the slowest of all the Smash games to what is the fastest of all the Smash games. It was a huge jump in speed. Especially when you have mobility things like grabbing items in mid-air and extra moves. It just feels so sluggish. You have to come to a full stop to pick up an item in this game. You can't even dash, attack, grab it.
But you have
Otherwise,
to
you'd
admit,
attack the item itself, and heaven forbid it was an explosive.
Oh yeah.
though, the slower speed is appreciated when you do one of my favorite, mini games, as we call it, is the baseball tournaments, where you have three people. One of them's a Samus that fully charges a shot, and you have two Nesses on the other side. Samus shoots a fully charged shot out, jumps out of the way, and then the Nesses keep batting it back and forth until someone misses and inevitably gets killed in one hit, because it just keeps damage multiplying. Try doing that in a faster Smash. It doesn't work as well. It goes too fast.
Well, no, that's part of what leads to like the black hole glitch in Melee. But no, I just remember going back to it, and everyone, especially the kids who had never played it, they're just like, "Oh my goodness, this is so slow," and they kept dash attacking into bombs or like the heart, like the anticipation of the heart, because the heart container would just fall so slowly, and they're trying to grab it in midair, and you can't. And so you're just fighting over the ground beneath it, because that thing doesn't heal 100 damage; it heals all damage in the original.
Honestly, I think I kind of like that approach. They should bring that back. You can't air grab healing items, and they fall very slowly.
That's not a bad idea.
I mean, it does create a competition on the ground where it's falling that now doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah, I kind of like this idea, but I don't know. It's I just think Smash 64 is such a great example of what we're talking about here, of games that are really difficult to go back to, just either because the sequels are just so much better, or there are certain like key concepts that just hadn't been worked out yet. But usually the reason it gets a sequel is usually because the first game has a core concept that is solid, and it might just need refinement. And in certain worlds, they might not have gotten that second chance. But thankfully, the games we're talking about today did. So, anyone want to talk about Mega Man 2?
Yeah.
We're going to go straight into it, are we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's
the best example.
When I was thinking about this list, I initially wouldn't have thought of Smash just because the first game was still great. There was nothing like it. It was amazing. I was thinking more along the lines of games that it's amazing they got a sequel at all. And the first Mega Man is one that I think totally fits in there, and I'm not the only one to think it.
I disagree.
I know you disagree, but there's a story. I'm gonna have breakfast tell it, but Capcom agrees with me, and I'll leave it at that for now. But the
because
first game,
Capcom's always been right on every choice they've made.
Well,
no,
I'm not going to disagree with you there.
Capcom agrees with me is no argument.
No, but this one's it's more literally true. It's amazing it got a sequel.
Yeah, we'll just I'll let Breakfast tell that story, but I'll just talk about.
I can understand, based on circumstances, it's amazing it got a sequel, but I don't think it qualifies as I can't believe it got a sequel.
Well, just hold your horses, dude. Hold your horses. So the original Mega Man was a very difficult game, and it had a lot of rough edges.
It is widely considered to be the most difficult Mega Man game simply because of those rough edges.
I mean, yeah, the rough edges, the stage design wasn't quite as well, the enemy designs weren't quite as good. It had a lot of problems.
All I know is going from Mega Man 6 to Mega Man 1 the first time, I picked Gutsman's stage the first time, and going on those lifts right at the start, it's like, oh, okay, this is a little more than I was anticipating.
The lifts, like I remember, when one of my apartment complexes that I lived at, I walked into the common room, and there was a couple of people sitting on the couch. They had a NES hooked up to the TV, and they were playing Mega Man. And it was a guy and several girls. He was terrible at it. Absolutely terrible. And he was playing Gutsman's level, and he was trying to get past those lifts, and he couldn't do it. And I had to step in and help him.
Well, I mean,
just to get him past that point.
I mean, yeah, some of those levels, like the lifts, were so hard. The Yellow Devil was insane unless you glitched it, and Gutsman's power is practically useless. The terrain has to be there to even use it. You can't just use it whenever, which is something they did away with. Every power is usable no matter where you are in every future game, but Gutsman, there had to be a block to pick up, or else his power was pointless and useless.
There are also 2 points in the game where you have to jump across some moving platform. But unlike later games, the platforms were not on a fixed cycle. Their movement was entirely random, and they could attack you if they moved above you. And you had to jump on several of them in rapid sequence. And this happened twice, once in Iceman stage and once in the Wily Castle stages. I remember moments where I was literally sitting there for 5 minutes at a time waiting for the platforms to line up just so that I could move on to the next one.
What's the name of the mobs, the fly, like the helicopter mobs that dive bomb onto you?
Okay, those
The
things?
ones with the goofy teeth?
Yes, the ones with the goofy teeth.
Mega Man enemy names are entirely Japanese, and I've never bothered to memorize them.
Well, all I know is those mobs in particular were my biggest source of frustration in that game, because they would fly in as you're trying to like jump across a chasm with no regard for reaction time, and they are so fast.
They're called Bunby Helis.
Okay.
See,
As
that's
in
why
heli
I
as in
never bothered to
helicopter.
learn that they were.
All right.
Also, two of the
I mean, the
robot
thing is
masters could kill you in 3 hits.
Yeah, well, there was that too. But and also the game, like, financially didn't do well from what I understand.
No.
yeah, so let's get
It was
let's
a
get to the
total
part.
bomb.
Yeah, let's go to the part where it's the more literal. It's amazing it got a sequel, not
Yeah.
so much because of the game itself, but because of the circumstances around it.
Because the circumstances around it. Because the thing is the people that created it thought there was a good core concept there, and so
And they
they
weren't
went
wrong.
and pitched a sequel to Capcom, and I'll let Breakfast take up from here.
In this aspect, I will completely agree with Baggins. The core concept was there, it was solid, and it was easily repeatable, and it was also one of the first games that let you choose the order in which you wanted to take the levels.
Well, and the order in which you do it had an effect, because then you had those weapons moving forward.
Right, and most notably in the Lekman stage, to get the magnet
Right.
item, you had to have Gutsman's power or Lekman's power, but that was another novelty. You could revisit stages that you had already accomplished and go through them a second time.
Which disappeared in Mega Man 2 and 3.
It did, but it was greatly expanded on in Mega Man X,
Absolutely.
where they took full advantage of the ability to do that, to hide items from you.
And that sort
But
of
when
leads to the whole idea of the core concept is good, because there's actually several variations you can do on it, and it's
Right.
still good.
But when it came to develop the sequel, Capcom just straight up said, no, you're not doing it. We want you to work on these instead. But the dev team believed in the project, believed in the concept. And Capcom finally relented and said, okay, if you want to work on this game, do it on your own time, not on the company's. And that's what they did.
So
Mega Man was developed on the developers' free time, in their spare time, and it wouldn't exist if they hadn't done that.
And Capcom treated Mega Man with nothing but respect ever since.
but I mean, just
Splice, do you want me to take up the entire 2 hours? Because I will.
So
The floor
But, I mean,
recognizes
that-
the breakfast Mega Man related filibuster.
I just have to chime in. There's floating enemies that you have to ride that move randomly. They're called footholders.
Huh.
And I just
Apt
find
description.
that worrisome.
yeah. So that's the thing. Mega Man 2, Capcom denied the pitch, said we're not paying for it. If you're gonna make it, you have to make it all on your own, and they did. So and then when Mega Man 2 comes out, it is a smash hit. Everyone loves it. It was a huge success in Japan. It was a huge success in the States. Like, I bought Mega Man 2 as a kid. I didn't even know about Mega Man 1 existed at the time. I mean, for me as a kid, it was just the game's Mega Man 2.
Well,
I didn't even think about the first
the
one at
excellent
all.
Ruby Spears cartoon.
That came
Yes, that came later.
Well, and
But like, it was a smash success. And think about this: Capcom didn't pay a penny for it to be made because it was, Capcom. And just imagine the return they got on Mega Man 2. So it's like they viewed Mega Man 1 as they spent money on it, lost money, it was a complete failure, and then Mega Man 2, with literally zero development costs, became a smash success and kicked off the whole series. That, I mean, yes, it's had some down moments, but overall, it's been a very successful series with many, successful games.
I blame the horrible box art.
The box art was not, because a lot of people looked at the box art and said, "Why would this be at all interesting?" No, it was atrocious.
No, if you
it was done on absolute crunch. Like they shipped it over to America and they didn't, and the Americans like, "We don't like this box art you gave us," and they like hired an artist to do. I think he had, I almost want to say he literally had to do it overnight.
Yeah, no. If you go to the channel Jay Reviews, he has a whole series on the Mega Man games.
I've watched them.
Yeah, and with each game he goes over the box art, and it's just kind of hilarious to see the Mega Man box artwork slowly but surely move to matching what's to Japan, but they never quite want to match it.
But yes, slowly. I just remember with Mega Man 2, I was like, why is he holding a gun?
I think the idea of his hand turning into the gun was a little too complicated for American audience.
That was an amusing situation, though. Are y'all familiar with the Worlds of Power books?
Yes.
Not books.
So it was a series of novelizations of video games, and Mega Man 2 was one of them. The funny thing is they were censored. The covers were censored because each of them had, not all necessarily, but a single weapon removed. So, for example, in Mega Man 2, he's just got his hand out, no gun. He's
going to fight him with fisticuffs.
In Metal Gear, he's like leaning up against the wall, and he's got the weapon strapped to his back, but the gun in his hand is gone.
Censorship was such a weird thing back then.
Ninja Gaiden, his katana was missing. Like it was very, very strange.
Like just the cover arts for the book?
The cover art for these books, yeah.
That's funny.
Like how Michelangelo could never use his nunchucks overseas. And eventually that started getting they eventually replaced it with a grappling hook here in the States even.
Boy.
All right.
I don't know
what
why
was that?
Europe did not like nunchucks. And Michelangelo was forbidden from using them in the overseas.
Like the Ninja Turtles, Michelangelo.
Yeah.
No, the actual artist.
The Renaissance painter.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Haha. Funny.
I feel I'm making a good point here.
I'm trying to think of what other Michelangelo we'd be talking about.
I don't know. There could be some other fictional Michelangelo that's
that used nunchucks.
It's possible. Incoming fanfic in 5, 4. No.
But
that's ridiculous. I don't know, but like nunchucks. I mean, what? That's weird, especially considering nunchucks as a weapon are, well, I mean, they were designed for threshing wheat, whatever.
But we're getting off topic.
Well, speaking of Ninja Turtles and games I can't believe got a sequel.
I was thinking of that one.
The original Ninja Turtles game is so
bad. That's a
different
case because
it is a different case.
The arcade game was initially not intended to be a sequel.
It was its own thing, and then they said, "Ooh, let's put this on the NES." But we already have a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the NES. We'll call it Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
But just look at the screen right now. Look at this. There is so much crap on the screen. They send so many mobs at you, and you have no time to react. And the jump, if Mario Bros is an example of jumping, feeling good, my goodness, the Ninja Turtles game is an example of movement being utter garbage.
That said, I loved this game.
Okay, is this the one with the
dam, yes.
level? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, like, and I remember there was like a place where you're up towards the ceiling, and there's like a 2-block gap that you have to do a perfect jump, or else you fall down below and have to climb back up. And it took forever to make that jump properly on that stage. It's like, why?
It's a tap jump, and it took me forever to recognize that a tap jump was a thing. I'm like, I'm holding A. I should be jumping over this. And it's like, no, that's your problem.
And there
I don't know. Maybe as an adult, it wouldn't be that hard to pull
you weren't
off.
supposed to jump at all. You're just supposed to walk across the gap.
I forgot about the winged missiles.
Yeah.
That was my biggest problem with this game, is none of the regular enemies outside of the Mousers resembled anything from the show.
Yes.
Yeah, not at all.
Foot soldiers were mini bosses that rarely showed up. I mean, look at that lava monster. That was
what is that fire?
What is that? Or what are those?
Yeah, I don't even know what some of the mobs are supposed to be. Like,
They
what
had
are these?
they had some Foot Clan show up.
No, the Foot Clan would show up as mini bosses. Bebop and Rocksteady were major bosses. They did have the Technodrome and a giant mouser. And then there was Shredder. And I think that was it.
Now, this game does have...
Krang doesn't even show up.
That this game does have one of the most important things, at least for me in gaming history. My first ever video game product placement. Because they had the Pizza Hut ads all over this game.
Were they in this game? I thought they did show up until Turtles 2.
No, this one had it too. They were specifically in the city sections. But that's a box. That's like, you have to have the NES cartridge to get it.
And the first boss cheese that I ever...
Yes.
Yes.
And Donatello with the bow staff is just so OP in this game.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why I love Donatello so much.
Yeah, they need to introduce like a patch to nerf him.
It's more powerful and it's got a longer reach, but it is slower and a little bit more unwieldy.
I would like to say, though, it's still playing Mega Man on YouTube, even though it's
I see.
Turtles.
No, it's not. You're way behind.
That's weird. Because in Watch Together, I'm seeing Turtles, but...
Yeah, on YouTube, I'm seeing he just went into level 2.
I will say, looking at this game, the background textures are actually far more detailed than other NES games of its time.
See, look, there's a Foot Clan.
Like, look, like this actually looks like a cement. And then, like, who's this guy with the chainsaw? Like, what's that about?
Is that Jason or something?
I guess. I don't know. But no, like, seriously, look at these backgrounds. Like, this is... Like, that actually looks like cement. I'm kind of impressed. It's actually a really good background texture, huh? But yeah, like it's just the future games are just so much better because it's like that's the thing about this game. It's like, okay, what does this have that's like that fulfills the Ninja Turtles experience that you're hoping to have? And it's
pizza.
like, well, it has pizza and it has turtles. Okay, but does it feel like a Ninja Turtles game? Not really.
I thought it did.
You know, I of the many things, I never felt that it wasn't a true Ninja Turtles game. I agree with Baggins. Now, that being said, I was never able to beat the dam level without cheesing it via emulation saves. I couldn't. And
I never beat it on the NES either.
Even using those, I could not avoid damage from the seaweed. There were some parts where it just felt literally impossible. I mean, you're probably right.
Oh, there's the jump right there.
Yep, I see it. There it is.
There it is. Oh man,
this is a jump you could cheese. You could actually jump up there, holding left a few times, and then skip everything to the right.
If you're good at it, I don't know. Speedrunners can do it. I watch them do it, and I'm like, how? I definitely tried to do that as a kid, and I could not do it.
I did it all the time.
I
just got to do it multiple times. You got to jump multiple times.
I love all these random mini bosses that pop out of nowhere. No. But the future games are just way better.
I mean, I forget exactly what the story was, but yeah, the Konami developed the arcade game, made it a beat 'em up. It was insanely popular and is still regarded as a
It's one of the best beat 'em up games.
Now, I will. It's not perfect. The bosses, particularly, are being an arcade game of the '90s, extremely cheap. The only way you can possibly beat them without dying millions of times is by playing touch and go with near pixel perfect movement.
Jump kick.
No, even then, they like your foot would deal damage, and then their counterattack would hit you before you landed.
Well, here's where
You know
the
why
quest
that is.
ended for me as a kid. Always.
It's because the game was built to suck up your
To
quarters.
suck quarters, yeah.
Which is why
Absolutely.
the
That's what
NES
arcades
version
did.
was the better version, in my opinion.
I disagree. I don't like the NES version because even the foot soldier, because they didn't implement combo attacks properly. I mean, the arcade didn't perfectly either. They didn't perfect that until Turtles in Time. But like, you could literally be attacking foot soldiers and they just punch you in the middle of a combo. And the only way you could prevent that from happening is by spamming the AB attack and doing instant knockdowns with every hit, or spamming jump kicks, which tended to be a little safer
Yeah.
even then.
Oh.
They added 2 levels, and I felt like it padded out the runtime far too much.
I played it and I beat it. I was proud of me. There's no way I was beating the arcade game. I don't have enough quarters for that.
Well, yeah, but
It's
I have
one of the-
I have the cow. I'll bring the Cowabunga collection up. You can beat it with me.
It's one of the first games I remember staying up late and playing with a friend during a sleepover. And
This
being
part
that
right
way.
here. I mean, even he's taking damage. Look at that.
He's almost dead.
And even abusing save states, like I was barely able to get to every bomb in time. This was because what they did in the 90s is they deliberately, because video rentals were a thing and game rentals were a thing, there was one level, usually around the middle of the game, that was deliberately made to be extremely difficult to prevent people who rented the games from beating them in the 3-day grace period that they were given.
Yeah.
The most notorious example of that is I believe the Genesis or the SNES Lion King had a very difficult mid-level.
I would say the codifier for that would be Battletoads.
Well,
Battletoads
no,
was just-
because Battletoads got insanely difficult and then just kept going.
Yeah.
Like fair enough.
Yeah.
Battletoads said, "All right, we'll get to level 3, and at this point, you know, this is your punishment for getting to level 3." And it's like, don't you need reward? No.
We're daring to succeed.
Well, those first 2 levels were fun, though. And
Yeah,
they're
no,
like,
they're great. And that it's Turbo Tunnel, and that it's like, oh, you think it's gonna get easier after Turbo Tunnel?
nope.
Okay, games that I can't believe got a sequel. How did Battletoads get a sequel when no one
Battletoads
got
was-
past level 4?
And
Well,
again,
was it a sequel? It was practically a remake, though. But then it also got that Double Dragon crossover.
What a random crossover that was.
Yeah, seriously.
Techno and Rare. Although the best Battletoads game will always be the arcade game.
How's the arcade game different? I was never had an
The
arcade.
arcade game is straight up beat 'em up. There's no vehicle level. Well, the very last level is kind of a vehicle. It goes a little more Contra than anything else. But every other stage in the game is just straight up beat 'em up. There's no gimmicks. There's no turbo tunnels. It's just combat.
Okay, this level that just came up on the Ninja Turtles, this is my favorite level. This
I
was
wouldn't
such
know.
a
I've
cool
never
level.
gotten this far.
This is the one
With
where
the bouncing astronauts?
The one where you you're driving your
van around.
Driving
Van
the what's that called? But seriously,
turtle
The turtle tank?
The party
Turtle wagon?
wagon.
but
Party
okay,
wagon.
seriously,
It didn't
what
look like the party wagon. It looked like a tank in this game.
what
No, it
look
looked
at
like
this
the party
thing. What
wagon.
are these things that are bouncing? Like, don't they just look like bouncing astronauts?
No, those are balloons with bombs on them.
No.
He's talking about the little blue guys.
Oh,
the
they're like
hunchbacks.
giant fleas.
Is that what they are? I don't know. That's the other thing with this game is like you see the enemies and it's an interpretive art piece. You're just like, what is this?
What's that eyeball crawling around on the floor.
I don't know.
What is that?
The other thing that was interesting is in this game, there were like 2 versions of enemies in each room. And like you could go in and see, like they're different enemies here. Like he goes up and he leaves the room and then he comes back in and it's a different group of enemies.
That's true. They did have two loading or 2 possible encounters for each room. Although I think it was more uniform and later in the game when you were fighting more difficult enemies.
This is the one I think that you could jump up and skip everything to the right. This room.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is this frustrated me when I found out the way you get across this gap is just by walking forward.
Uh-huh.
Did you ever get this far?
Yeah, because my cousin's the one who told me, oh, you just walk over it, because he had the strategy guide. And so and he's like, oh, you just walk over it. And I'm like, what? And I try it, and I was, 6-year-old me had all this impotent rage see,
It's so counterintuitive.
Those are totally fleas.
They're flea men is what they are, but those should be back in Castlevania. They're flea men out of their element, which is why they need the environmental suits.
Okay, see, I like the lore that Breakfast is building with this.
So environmental suit.
Well, it is Konami, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So speaking of arcade games that amazing they got a sequel. I think this conversation would not be complete without mention of Street Fighter or Fighting Street.
Oh,
I am in 100% agreement with you on this one.
Like, I've never actually played the original arcade cabinet for Fighting Street Fighter.
That was always my question growing up. I was like, where's Street Fighter 1? Because I had never seen a Street Fighter 1. And then I will never forget, there was this random roller skate rink that had the original.
Really? In the US even? Wow.
And it was just like, I saw it and it was seriously, it was like I found a unicorn. I'm just like, what? This exists?
Yeah.
A dead, rotting unicorn.
Yeah. Yeah, I just couldn't believe it because I just had never heard of it.
Well, I mean, like how I said for me, Mega Man started at Mega Man 2. For most people, Street Fighter started at Street Fighter 2. I mean, for me as well. I mean, I personally have never seen a Street Fighter 1 anything, like cabinet or anything anywhere.
Yeah.
Once again, I emulated it once, and let me tell you, you are not missing anything.
Look at this. Look at this movement.
Performing the special moves was a toss-up, whether or not you'd actually get it to come out.
Well,
and they were also, each one was its own individual super move, considering they would take off huge chunks of your health if they connected.
Well, and you could only play as Ryu or Ken, and they were.
And you could only play Ken if you fought another person. Ken
that was the only way.
That was the only way to play Ken. Otherwise, if you were playing first person player or single player, it was Ryu all the way. And the arcade cabinet they didn't have buttons.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. I'm like, isn't that the one where you had to like punch something?
It had the 3 kicks and the 3 punches, but it was a pressure button.
That's right.
Okay, they were pressure pads, and the strength of your kick or punch depended entirely on how hard you hit the button. And there were 3 degrees: light, medium, and heavy.
Forgot about this.
Which is why you never saw the arcades anywhere, because those buttons wore out very quickly and quickly became useless, preventing you from being able to play the game at all.
Yeah,
so,
putting in pressure-sensitive controls is a bold choice at an arcade.
The fact that this got a sequel at all is absolutely a head-scratcher. But again, they believed that the core concept was worth building on.
And I don't know if there's a story of Capcom saying no and people doing it off time. I have no idea if there's a story like there was for Mega Man.
Go watch Thorgy's Arcade. He does retrospectives on various fighting game series. He's currently in the middle of doing one on Street Fighter. He's gotten up to Street Fighter 4, but he'll tell you all about that story.
Well, so did Street Fighter 2 actually get greenlit by Capcom? Or
Street Fighter 2 was greenlit. But even Street Fighter 2, you know, it's interesting you brought up Smash Brothers when we started and how slow the initial Smash Brothers is compared to like Melee. Even Street Fighter 2, because it got re-released several times. And one of the last releases, at least for the original system, was Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, where they pumped up the speed.
Well, and it's the ultimate example of just stringing all the boy words together.
Well, here's the thing, though. The whole reason that exists is because there was a ROM hack of Street Fighter 2 where the hackers just, they did the whole, instead of nerfing or balancing anybody, I'm just going to make everyone super overpowered. So they buffed everyone to the max and increased the speed. And one of the developers got his hands on it and played it and realized, holy cow, this is actually a lot of fun. And with that, they bumped up the speed, rebalanced the game a little bit, and came out with Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
But yeah, man, it's just how
And if
rough.
you go back and play the original Street Fighter 2 after playing Turbo, everyone go back and like, it's so slow. How did we play like this? Sorry, Lulini, I didn't mean to.
Oh no, no, it is amazing just how much it changed with the speed and just how Street Fighter has evolved. But to think this is how it started and somehow got greenlit for a second, because like the second one just blows this one so far out the water that it almost doesn't even feel like it's from the same. It doesn't even really feel like it's the same game at all.
No, well, it's the whole thing where someone once said, and I like it. It's permanently just stuck in my head. The idea that if you look at Mario 3 versus Mario 1, you'd be forgiven for thinking Mario 3 was on a completely different system.
Sure. Yeah.
See, but Mario 1 isn't hard to go back to.
No, it's not. Like Mario 1 is still a good game. It's just one of those. It's just such a jump in quality. You're just like, how? Wow, I didn't realize that you could do a game like this on the system.
Well,
hi, Mithril.
But going back
Hi,
Mithril. Going back to Mega Man real quick. If you compare Mega Man 1 to Mega Man 5 or 6, a lot of people overlook it because Mega Man sprite didn't change, like hardly at all. Some coloring got adjusted.
But like the backgrounds and how the
the backgrounds and the stage progression and the enemy designs and the robot masters all got significantly, and the sound, the music, the way they were able to manipulate the sound chip, all got significantly just better as they went along. Because Mega Man 6 came out well into the Super Nintendo's lifespan.
Yeah, which is so bizarre.
Like 94, I think. I'd have to double check that.
It came out as one of the quote-unquote launch titles for the NES redesign.
Right.
For the top loader.
93 is when it was released in Japan. 94 in North America. March 15th. So, yeah, and then SNES came out, 92? But people couldn't, back then, getting the brand newest device wasn't as widespread a phenomena. It wasn't, a lot of people didn't buy the upgrade for many years because
People
we
weren't
don't need a Super
camping out to
Nintendo.
buy
We
it.
got a Nintendo at home.
So, what came first, Mega Man X or Mega Man 6?
I think it was the same year, wasn't it?
I think X might have come out first.
Let's see.
That's so wild.
Let's take a look. Mega Man X was released December 17th, 1993. So, Mega Man 6 did come out first, but
by a month.
Wow.
Mega Man X.
Man, they improved so much. It was just within a month's time.
That's
That's some evolution right there.
indeed. Someone probably took some self-improvement classes or something. All right. One of the others that's a great example of just it's really hard to go back to after you've played the sequels. I think the Assassin's Creed series.
Okay, this is the one I was about to try and bring up. So yes, this is my trope namer, as it were.
Because I mean that's where I'm like, I actually really loved the first game.
But have you tried to go back to it?
I've only ever played the first game, so
it is painful to go
I
back
will say Assassin's Creed 2 was a massive step up. It just improved everything that made the first game better.
Every single thing.
And you could swim.
Like I enjoyed the first game, which is why I was excited when the second game came out. But I have never been able to go back to the first game since. It feels clunky, it feels awkward, it just doesn't work.
That's understandable because
Plus you die as soon as you go into the water.
Yeah.
I never played Assassin's Creed, but my brother did, and I remember him trying to get into 1, not really getting into it, and then his friend's like, no, you can't start with 1, you have to start with 2. And 2 is so much 1, they had some ideas, but 2 was no, we actually know what this game is about now.
I mean, I did like in 1 how it had multiple towns and kind of a hub world to go between them. But at the same time, making in 2 where they just made the one town really big, it worked just fine.
I will always be amused though about how Assassin's Creed 2 so faithfully recreated the city of Venice that people who played the game extensively innately knew their way around.
That
if they ever
was
actually
me.
Went to visit Venice. It wasn't just you.
I've
heard other people talking about that.
That was me for Brotherhood.
Well, that, and I've heard that
when the
they actually
burned down. They contacted
Ubisoft, the Notre Dame,
because they had the most accurate not maps, but
representation
and blueprints of at the time.
No, but I remember I had been playing Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, which takes place entirely in Rome, shortly before my 30th birthday, during which, and for my 30th birthday, I actually went, I took a cruise through Rome with Petrivka. And and as we were walking down a street, I just had this strange feeling of familiarity. And I looked at him, I said, when we go around this corner, we'll be at there's going to be an arch, and then past that is the Colosseum. And he just sort of gave me this look. And then we went around the corner, and there was an arch, and the Colosseum was far beyond it. And he just sort of looked at me, he was like, what the heck? I was like, I learned that from Assassin's Creed. And that was when I just realized this is nuts.
That's cool.
I read a green text about how there's a guy who says, my grandparents always want me to turn the game on for them because they just want to go on the gondolas and go down the river and look at the sights.
Well, and relive their honeymoon or their life
right.
when they were younger. Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
Though we're talking about the first game.
Yeah. Well, because Ubisoft is just known for quality.
Well, actually, that story though about being able to recognize a place, that actually does make me think of another series that I did actually play the first one in high school on the PS1. I didn't finish it, but then I picked up Persona 4 much later. But Persona 5 is one area that if I was in Shibuya, I'd know my way around, because it literally is just like Persona 5, Shibuya Station. I'd be able to find the what's the name of the dog? Buchiko, the dog statue.
Yeah, I think isn't that a complaint for the locals now?
Yes, actually, the locals kind of got annoyed at people making their Persona 5 pilgrimages and taking up space that they want to be in.
Japan started banning tourists certain hours of certain days in certain places because it's just getting too bad.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately,
The way
it's
people are
also
treating
because
Japan
people are
and
not they're not treating it very respectfully.
But Persona is one that it is, once you've played the later games, it's hard to go back in time. So the first game was a PS1 game, and it had some issues, especially in the US, where in their attempt to try and make the game easier for us Americans, they actually made it harder. They actually, if I remember correctly, they decreased the encounter rate by a factor of 4, so you had a quarter as many battles, but they forgot to scale all the rewards of the battles up. But man, that'd be so rough going after playing Persona 4. Well, in Persona 4, you're able to command, just like in Persona 5, you can say, oh, issue commands to, I want to directly control all my teammates. But in Persona 3, I played after Persona 4 because I love Persona 4 so much that when I started playing it, and I'm like, oh, I just have to give, be on attack or be on healing or be on defense. I can't directly tell it what command to use, just kind of general AI guides. And the only person I can directly control is the main character. It was hard to go back to that. I mean, Persona 3 was still a good game, but going back to Persona 1, I imagine it'd be even harder, where it was a first-person dungeon crawler in the dungeons, and just how different it was and the flow it was. I think Persona 1 was still a decent game and deserved a sequel, but it is rough and hard to go back in time with Persona with just how much better each one got.
Yeah, that JRPGs are an interesting category for this, because a lot of times there's just huge jumps in gameplay as a result.
I term the entire there's for lack of a better term, I term a whole section of games NES or Famicom RPG jank, or just early RPG jank in general, of just if you're like me, you're weirdly a fan of it, even though it's before your time. But a lot of people have an impossible time going back to games without, first of all, sometimes any level of convenience, but second of all, it's did they really know what they were doing? What's going on here?
Well, and that's, I think, one of the reasons a lot of these games were able to get sequels is particularly the ones back in the 8-bit era. These studios weren't big, and so they were able to they were able to do more of a shotgun approach.
Mm-hmm.
Just put out and making a game wasn't this, epic feat that you have to involve hundreds of people in.
The overhead was so much smaller.
Uh-huh.
Well, and
development was a lot simpler.
And it's very experimental at the time because they don't know what they're doing.
I mean, I'm sure everyone here knows this, but for anyone who may not, the reason it's called Final Fantasy is because they genuinely believed it was going to be the last game.
That I believe is actually an urban legend.
Oh, really?
Mm. Yeah, that one's an urban legend. It's actually really complicated.
So were they not close to bankruptcy back then?
They were.
But that's not why it was.
But that's not the reason why they called it that.
I mean, it still was Squaresoft's first good game that actually made them money.
Yeah,
that's
it was
also true.
It wasn't that that Square was going to go bankrupt. It's that Sakaguchi was going to bail from the games industry. Again. Yeah. He said if the game hadn't sold well, he was going to quit the business and go back to college.
I see.
My favorite one is still when my dad heard about
Final Fantasy. Not
when my dad heard about Final Fantasy X, because I told him I was playing that, and he just did I'm sorry, what? I'm like, Final Fantasy X. And
speaking of, how did this game get a sequel?
Yeah, and he's just like
I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm just saying I wasn't expecting it to get a direct sequel.
Yeah, and he's just like, how can there be multiple Final Fantasies? To which I'm just like, I don't have like wait till I tell you there's a Final Fantasy X-2.
I was gonna say, hey, wait till you hear about Final Fantasy VII Extended Universe.
Well, since we're already talking about Final Fantasy, I actually have a I'm going against something, but Final Fantasy 14 itself.
That's a weird one.
It's a weird
one of those,
one,
like, can't escape a podcast without mentioning it.
Right, but Final Fantasy 14 itself, 1.0 was just like, it was universally panned. There were a few holdouts who, they put their everything into it, but it was essentially dead on arrival.
That's a fair point. I mean, you think that would have been okay, we're done with this whole MMO thing. Like 11 made some money, but 14 was such a disaster. It's time to pack it up, guys. Yeah, no, that's a very good point.
But A Realm Reborn is essentially, I mean, it's an expansion, but it's kind of a sequel because they rebuilt the game from the ground up.
It's not a sequel. It's a full-on reboot.
Yeah. Well, and then... Okay, there are multiple perspectives on this one, but even A Realm Reborn getting a sequel, because a lot of people say when you start playing FF14, you have to make it through, you have to push through A Realm Reborn, because then it starts getting really good at Heavensward. Of course, there are people who will say A Realm Reborn is still good, and you know what? I think there is some truth to that. But when you have a game that you have to say, all right, you've got to slog through the first 40 to 60 hours and then it gets good. For the majority of people, that's an interesting feat.
It's a bit of an ask.
It is a bit of an ask. That's like saying, here's an enormous book series. Well, and you have to read the first 4 books before it's good.
You have to read them in order for it to make sense.
Yes, and it is important in Final Fantasy XIV to do it in order.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite Final Fantasy in-joke actually doesn't come from Final Fantasy.
What now?
In the game Deus Ex Human Revolution, which was released while Square Enix owned the franchise at the time,
mm-hmm.
in one of the offices in one of the levels, you can walk in. The game takes place in like 1T53 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you can walk into an office and there's a poster for Final Fantasy 28.
Nice.
I actually really like the poster.
And it's got the main character design on it, and everyone's like, if Final Fantasy 28 does not use this character design, we will be grossly disappointed.
Yes, it's true. Absolutely confirmed. I can confirm.
We're more than halfway there.
I know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Living on a prayer.
The first, now Final Fantasy, it is hard to go as classic as the first one is, and great of a game as it was, and it deserved to be the success that put Square on the map and made them go from an indie to a big developer. It is hard to go back to Final Fantasy 1, especially if it's the original.
I
agree.
For example, back
I
then...
disagree strongly, but I also know it's just my love of old RPG gems.
Hey, dude, I love old RPGs. Don't get me wrong, dude. I grew up on them, but I just need to point out the whole... If you, in the attack, if you have all your teammates attack one enemy, and if the enemy dies, say the second person kills them, then the third and fourth person will attack thin air and miss, because there's no enemy there, and oh my goodness.
The game was designed specifically to prevent A-button mashing.
I know, but man, when they made that improvement in Final Fantasy, in a future one, it's so nice. But dude, playing Final Fantasy IV blew my mind.
I am going to agree.
My own hater holdout of I'm just going to say it transformed the game into an A button press.
I'm going to agree with both of you. I actually completely agree with both of you because I love going back to it. There is a nostalgia to it that is wonderful.
Oh, I love that too. Don't get me wrong.
But it is hard to go back to. And honestly, I'll even say the same thing about one of my favorite games of all time. Because I've talked about Suikoden 2. Suikoden 1 is rough compared to Suikoden 2. I still love Suikoden 1. But Suikoden 2 took it leaps and bounds beyond what it was, to the point where people still hold up Suikoden 2 as the best in the series of 5 mainline games, 1 tactics game, and 2 guidance spin-offs.
Yeah.
But the first one, there were some big improvements between 1 and 2.
Though Final Fantasy can't say that. I'm actually surprised Final Fantasy 2 didn't kill Final Fantasy.
No,
FF2
Final
is-
Fantasy 2 in the States was Final Fantasy 4, which is greatly regarded as one of the best in the game.
Final Fantasy 4 is amazing, but man, Final Fantasy 2
is my favorite Elder Scrolls game. Because it uses that same sort of system, but it's just a really, really bad version of
The
it.
more you use an ability, the
Well, I'd say it's
better you get at it.
well. So, I mean, that's what I guess Final Fantasy 2 spawned the Saga series with that system.
Yeah. It's FF2 is the epitome to me. Some people say FF1, but FF2 is the epitome to me of the version you play really determines if you're going to enjoy that game, because like the old NES version not only has stat increases, but has stat decreases, where it's like if you use physical attacks, your spell ranks will lower, or like your magic stats will lower, something like that.
Well, and the whole enemies had to be stronger than you for stats to go up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you'd hit caps that would really limit you, and the way to get around it. Well, and then the way around it that I discovered was to have your teammates beat each other up. So you just find a weak enemy and then wail on your own team.
Well, that only works in certain versions, because sometimes the version is... It takes the enemy strength that you're fighting against and then scales all your experience gain to, like, the encounter level. So it doesn't matter if you're beating yourself up or beating someone else up.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, at least that's the version that I played when it was like the mobile port before the Pixel remaster. So
I've never played 2, so I 2 or 3 for that matter. So I have no idea how any of this goes.
not
Yeah,
necessarily
but 2
missing anything,
Oh
but
my
if you're
goodness,
a
2 is
game
rough.
historian, it might be interesting. Is the way I put it.
2
like how I
is
tell people-
rough.
It's like how I tell people on Fire Emblem 1. If you're interested in the history of the series, go for it. But there are far better ways to experience even that same story.
So, like,
It's available on Switch Online.
What is not, because it was...
No, it's not online. You had to buy it. That's what it was. You could buy it from
Yeah,
the Switch
you
store.
could buy it, but then it got killed on the day that Mario died.
but yeah, man, all I know is with how bad FF2 was, I'm surprised it got greenlit for FF3, but that's also the reason why the US didn't get FF2 originally, I bet.
Or FF3.
Or FF3 for that
It was
matter.
because they were on the NES, and they're like, look, the Super Nintendo's already out by this point. Let's just forget about these two and go for the SNES one.
Well, that one's amazing. 4 is fantastic.
I'm not
My
saying they
favorite.
made a wrong decision.
So here's one that's an interesting one for me, because I think this game holds up incredibly well, but it is hard for me to go back to, and that's Arkham Asylum.
Really?
Oh yeah,
So once you play,
I loved Asylum, man,
so did I. The thing is,
but I have not played it since playing City.
Arkham City improved so much, especially in terms of mobility, because you were in a wide open city as opposed to Arkham Asylum, where you're moving from room to room to room, essentially. There's very little mobility options.
I feel like the hardest thing to go back to in Arkham Asylum is the repetitive boss fights.
There's that. The other thing that's difficult is just the combat itself wasn't quite as refined. There was a lot more button combinations and throwing guys into one another. There were a lot less finishing options as well. And so...
Yes, there was a lot. I did feel like there was a lot more focus in the combat because there was less finishing. You had to punch them out.
And so they can let you go up against much bigger mobs in City. One, because there's just more space to begin with, the way everything's designed, but two, because you have multiple combo and even counters, like because you had the up to triple counter where you would counter 3 people at the same time, and it looked awesome every time you did it because they had really good animations for it. And so this is one that, like, it's if someone's like, I want to play the Arkham series, it's like you have to start with Asylum because the game is really good, but also because if you do City, it's going to be difficult to go back to Asylum.
Well, shouldn't you start with Origins? It's the one that takes place first chronologically.
Yeah, true. I think Origins gets a bad rap personally. I think it's good. Breaks canon, but you know.
I was trying to bait Splice into complaining. He didn't take it.
No, it's because
I
I like Origins.
I disagree with you on that one, though.
I like it.
I replayed it, and I was just like, oh, this is worse than I remember.
It's not as good as the others, but I still really enjoy it.
In a similar vein to that, where it's like the original was good, but the sequel was so much better that it's really hard for most people to go back to the original. Diablo 1 going into Diablo 2 is a fundamentally different game, where I don't think of Diablo 1 as an ARPG, fundamentally. I think of it as like an isometric roguelike when I play it, because Diablo 2 really transformed what it means to be an ARPG, and then Diablo 1 is like, well, it's something else.
I remember it was Blizzard. It was one of the anniversaries of the original Diablo, and so they released like a way to play it within like Diablo 3 or something. I can't remember.
So the way that they did that, and it was pure nostalgia baiting, because basically they just made one random side dungeon that had a lot of items that were named the same as like certain uniques or super chase.
But I remember
like,
it did
items.
they made it so you could only move in the orthogonal directions.
Yes.
Well,
And they
But
were
it was
talking
still
about
Diablo 3, and so it was this weird halfway house between the two, where it's like, look, real Diablo 1 fans aren't gonna feel like it's Diablo 1, and real Diablo 3 fans are gonna feel like this is like old and janky.
Well,
so
and-
it's kind of like the worst of both worlds.
Well,
I mean, that's the thing.
I just remember them saying during that, they're just like, yeah, and people are like, woo, and it's like, and like the developers like, be careful what you wish for. Like, it's like, I don't think some of you have played the original Diablo, and you're going to be shocked at how difficult it is to move when you can only move in those directions.
Well, I mean, the first game was so very experimental because, like, you know, some people, because, like, what genre would you call it? Because, you know, I was like, oh, well, Diablo's an action RPG. I'm like, I remember when I was a kid, people asked me what type of game is it. I called it the click on enemies until they die game, is how I described it.
Like, modern...
It's
like
the first clicker game.
Because it's even, you know, David Brevik, when he goes on and talks about it on, like, GDQ and whatnot, it was inspired by Rogue. It is 100% a roguelike. In its core DNA, at least.
I only briefly played the first Diablo, and I haven't played any of the others since. And I just remember getting frustrated because the nature at which you control your character made it more of a resource management game than anything else. And
Yes.
I didn't care for that.
Yeah, the fact that you're neither health nor mana automatically regen. You have to talk to someone in town to restore your health, and mana you can only restore with potions.
Well, not only that, it was just like if you weren't enormously overleveled, you had to face the enemies head on, and the only way to avoid damage was to click away from the enemy. But you, like, unless you were super precise, you were going to be taking damage.
It's a very interesting dance to have to learn how to actually play the game, especially nowadays, because it is weird.
There's a reason everyone talks about Diablo 2.
I wasn't interested in learning that dance. I didn't have the patience for it.
It's one of the examples of like an older game that's before my time, but I still grew up on and wanted to play, and so it's like It's my cup of tea, but also, if we want to talk about a game that is impossible to go back to, how many RTS fans do we have in here? Real-time strategy games.
I'm raising my hand, but you can't see it.
Are we
Uh,
bringing up the original XCOM?
Do we have to be good at it, or
No, real-time strategy. We're bringing up the
Real-time
original
XCOM is not a
Warcraft.
real-
Oh, sorry,
strategy.
sorry. I just heard strategy and my brain went elsewhere. Sorry.
I'm popping this in the my retrospective video. Ha ha ha! I'm popping it in the watch together because real-time strategy games.
I was
they've
planning to
come
bring
a
this
long
up.
way.
Yeah.
They've come a long way. If you've played like StarCraft or Warcraft 2, you're probably used to things like
Oh, Orcs and Humans. I remember this. Oh, man.
You'll probably
How about
remember, hey,
something as basic as being able to select more than one unit at a time?
you can select up to 4. You can't hotkey anything. Hotkeys don't exist.
and you
Or,
can't
like,
drag
number
you can't
hotkeys.
click and drag.
Right, you have to
Yeah.
shift click on 4
Okay,
units.
did any of you have the experience of dialing your next door neighbor's phone number to try and play this over
No,
the phone line?
No,
Not
I
fully
did-
the internet, over the phone line.
I did not do this with Warcraft 1, but I did do it with Warcraft 2. However, I was the beneficiary of a house with multiple phone lines because my dad was running a business out of his house.
Mhm.
And so he had a business line as well as a house line. And if we were off business hours, we could use that line to play games because he wasn't expecting calls. Or he had a voice service for that.
Yeah. But yeah, so 2 of the most basic functionalities that Warcraft 1 did not have that I think even Command and Conquer had in some ways. Warcraft 1 had no right click to move. You had to press the M key and then left click to where you wanted to go. So no like smart click move and no mouse scrolling by going to the sides or corners of the screen. So you had to either like click on the mini map
or
to
use the
like,
arrow keys. Yep. Although the sting of Warcraft 1 is greatly mitigated once you realize the power of the ranged units.
Oh yeah, no, archers, Warcraft 1 archers are incredibly overpowered. The only thing arguably stronger is warlocks with greater demon summoning, because they summon units, the only units that don't die to catapult hits.
Right.
Oh, this game is, it started...
Welcome to the world of Warcraft.
Oh, the
But-
classic Bill Roper voice line. It
My-
started a
my
legacy,
goodness.
but...
Wait, is
Yeah,
that
no,
good?
this
Is
game
that
is
good?
rough.
Okay, you just dropped some lore on me. You actually know the name of that guy?
Look, there are only like 20 people actually worked on this game.
I mean, fair enough. I never knew who actually
He did
voiced it.
all the voices for, like, I think it was literally all the voices in both Warcraft 1 and 2. Maybe they
Who
did.
did?
They had a couple
Wait,
different
did-
ones in 2.
Who did?
but,
Who did you say did?
Bill Roper.
Ah, okay.
Did you notice that he had to have that unit move to move the cloud of fog of war just a little bit so he could build?
Mhm.
Right, and you
Oh
could
my
only
goodness.
build. You had to have roads in order. You
Yep.
had to build next to a road. You had to build roads.
Oh, yeah.
It was Command and Conquer before this? I'm trying to remember
I
the timeline on
don't. Dune
this.
2 was.
Dune
but I
2 was
don't
definitely
know about-
before this.
'Cause it
Still
is-
can't believe Dune invented the RTS.
That was Westwood.
But yeah, if you
the
want
original-
archers, just they wreck. So good.
Original Command and Conquer
But, man,
was
this-
released September of 1995.
But man, Warcraft 2 was such an improvement over this game.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Warcraft,
goodness.
orcs, and
You said Fog of
humans.
War.
Yeah,
You
there
said
was no
Fog of
there was no
War.
fog of war. Well, there was
Yeah.
initially, but once you like, it wasn't a fog. It was just once you explored the map, you had vision on.
Yeah,
Well,
Command and
okay.
Conquer style.
Yeah.
You have a black map that obscures the map, but as soon as you scout it, it's permanently visible.
So Warcraft was released first, the 14th of November 94 versus Command and Conquer's September of 95. So Warcraft
Oh,
had
they beat him to the punch by almost a year.
almost a year.
Wait, Command and Conquer was a year before Warcraft?
Year after.
Oh, okay.
Dune 2, which was Westwood's first real-time strategy, was released the year before Warcraft, so it was the first one, December of 92. So Dune 2 came out a year before Warcraft 1, which came out a year before Command and Conquer. So Westwood had 2 years after Dune 2 to smooth things out for Command and Conquer's release.
Time.
Yeah.
Though, with how janky this game is, it still had a really good concept, though. And it was fun.
It's great.
It was fun.
I went back earlier this year and replayed both campaigns. It's jank, but I still enjoy it.
Warcraft 3 was about as far as I got into the Warcraft saga, simply because once they stopped making it about orcs versus humans and started going into this whole prophecies and demons and curses and whatnot, I kind of tuned out. And the same thing happened with StarCraft. Once it stopped being a fight between, 3 races battling for supremacy in a sector of the galaxy and became this overarching story about prophecies and curses.
What StarCraft 2 did to the story and lore, it's impossible to not argue that StarCraft 2 killed StarCraft, because there is no StarCraft 3 on the horizon, and everyone who made it left the company.
Yeah.
Everyone leaving the company part's a different issue.
Yeah.
So Breakfast, what you're saying is you just wish it was there's the enemy. Let's fight.
I mean, kind of. Like, I understand you want escalation to raise the stakes and whatnot, but at some point there's always we have to band together to fight this greater evil. It's just like, whatever happened to just duking it out? Like, even Command and Conquer did it at one point once the Skrin were introduced, but then though, although technically it first happened in Firestorm, the Tiberian Sun expansion pack, where Cabal, the Nod computer, went rogue and started, and so Nod and GDI. But even then, they were momentarily truces, and once those issues were resolved, they were back at each other's throat. I don't know. I at some point, escalation gets to be too much, and I kind of like, the concept. Keep it simple, stupid.
There's definitely something to be said for that. If we're okay to move on.
Yeah, we're fine.
Another series that if you've played the first original game, has anyone here played Ys? Are people familiar with Ys at all?
I know of it.
Isn't that what you used to make bread rise?
I have people in my community that always talk about it, but I've never played it myself.
For the longest time, I only knew it. I'd never heard anyone pronounce it. I'd only read the title, and I thought it was literally just Wise.
I as a kid, I called it Wise as well. The game, when I think about it, the series actually kind of has a very Zelda evolution to it. It is kind of Zelda game where the first one was a top-down, the third one tried to have dungeons that played like Adventure of Link, and the modern ones are 3D Zelda games, right? So it's very much a Zelda game, and even experimented the same way Zelda did. But the original game is really rough. Now, the remakes of the first game is fantastic. But the first game that came out on the TurboGrafx 16, it didn't. So think of the first Zelda game where you hit the attack button and Link sticks out his sword, creates a hurt box. So there's a separation. There's a clear delineation of what you're attacking and how you hit it, right? Well, in the original Ys, you didn't have an animation of the sword coming out in front of you, and the difference between your hurt box and your hit box was, I still don't know what the difference is. You basically just walked into enemies and hoped it took damage instead of you.
Was this a hide-glide situation where it's
Yes, it was very much a hide-glide situation. And because that's the way the original game played, it's I'm surprised it got sequels. Yeah. But
what's hide-glide?
Oh, it has that same mechanic, and it's just
where I can find Hydlide and put it on this.
Though, actually, you know what? Hydlide got a sequel as well, didn't it?
It
But
got two. It got
the 3D one, which is like
Yeah,
one
they
of the
got
worst
the
games
3D
ever
one.
made.
the 3D
Yeah.
one is a 3D remake of the original Hydlide, and then but it did get a sequel in Super Hydlide on the Super NES.
Okay, I just found Yeast
Yeah,
on the
it's-
Turbo Graphics. Look at that running animation.
But yeah, see, look, you just bum rush the enemy and hope it takes the damage instead of you. Now, all the remakes of this game and all the games since it use, Zelda-styled combat, so it's fine. Like, the remakes play just fine, but the original...
The way these guys run into each other, it's like Rock'em Sock'em robots.
Yeah, it's... Oh, my goodness.
For some reason, like I've never actually seen gameplay of this game, and I always thought it was just a standard JRPG like Final Fantasy or Wizard,
Like
not
a
Wizard
turn-based
Warriors,
one?
but
Yeah.
a turn-based one.
This looks like so many like SNES or whatever RPGs.
This looks
that
like
were just one and done that never got sequels and never went anywhere.
this looks
But,
like
this one's
Christmas,
gotten
but
plenty of
jank.
sequels, and, it's done really well. They still... they just announced, the 11th one? Just
Don't
this...
ask me how it did, but it did.
and for what I hear, I've actually bought some of the newer ones.
I've heard
But-
good things.
And and like I said, I played the remake on the DS of this game, and it's great because it just plays like a Zelda game. It's now a Zelda-style game entirely, but this first one, even though it was released 4 years after Zelda, for whatever reason, they didn't learn the lesson from Zelda back then. But thank goodness they've learned it now.
You know what this is? You know how you were talking about, I can't remember which Persona game it was, where you can't control the characters? This is the Legend of Zelda version of that, because you don't get to control the attack.
Yeah.
Oh no.
You just sort of hit them and just start going, bother, 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 bother.
Yeah, and...
I have the sound muted. I haven't. I need to listen to this pain.
But I played this game as the remake, and it was fine. But what it was is I got my hands on the original TurboGrafx at a retro,
That's from.
at a retro game convention. Played the original one. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's how it controlled on the original release of this game. Oh my gosh.
Well, I didn't. I've only ever seen the word yeast pop up on OC Remix, so I had no clue what it was. This is eye opening.
I'll give it this. Even this original game, great music.
Oh, it's got banger music. All of them have banger music, man. Like even this first one's got great music to it.
And just for the sake of anyone watching, in case they don't know, it's the title of the game is just the letter YS, which is why we always pronounced it Wise, but it is in fact pronounced East. Just to clarify.
Yeah. So
You know what?
Though the
You know
first East game I actually played was East 3, which it was on the Super Nintendo, and it was kind of like Adventure of Link, where you'd go inside a dungeon and it'd be platformer.
That's the first one I played too.
Yeah, that was the first one I played. In fact, I had forgotten what the name of that game was, and there was a song that would get stuck in my head, and I'd think about this game, and I'm like, I can't remember what the title was, because I'd remember, the Dungeon of the Mine, and for
those be
years...
like Bomberman's theme.
For years, I'm like, what game is this? I remember playing this game, I can't remember what it's called, and it just kind of was like bugging me for like 10 years, and then I was listening to RP Gamers Radio, and the song came up, this one of the dungeon themes, and it clicked in my head that instant, and I'm like, that's the song, that's the game, and I pulled it up, and sure enough, I was able to figure out it was East 3, so good times, great music. Oh my gosh, and the TurboGrafx menuing. Oh, I forgot about that.
I have never
awful.
played a TurboGrafx 16.
Is this
Same.
an example of a game where like music and sound design just carried it?
It
Quite
happens.
possibly.
No, so talk about one that's a weird one for me, because it's actually true twice
I know
over.
what you're gonna say.
XCOM.
Oh, that's not what I thought you were gonna say.
No, it's weird for me twice over because there's two. When I say go back, that can mean two different things. I can't go back to the original version of XCOM.
I totally get you on both counts.
Like I just like that one's. I literally cannot go back.
Mm-hmm.
It is so full of jank. But the thing that's interesting there is there's an entire class of XCOM fans that prefer the older version.
Not only do they prefer it, they actually hate the reboots because of what it did to the original XCOM.
Yeah. But what's cool about that is that you have things like Xenonauts that have come out since then to
Give it to that fan base.
Yeah.
Phoenix Point, I think it's called.
no one likes that one. But I just got a donation.
Oh.
But I thought I had donations.
It's in YouTube.
I believe it's from your
someone did a
sister,
super
Splice.
chat.
Yeah,
Oh,
she put in
dear.
a super chat.
Oh dear. Dad Splice story time. Man often mixes up his two sons' name. One day he takes the next level of forgetfulness. Yes, well, that did happen. Yes.
Oh, my parents did that all the time. In fact, my parents had 8 kids.
Yeah.
And they've called me. They've called for the dog, trying to call for me sometimes.
Well, that happened to my sister too.
I'm the youngest of 7, and they've gone like in order through each of them before that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm six of
In
8.
order.
My parents did that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. And if I'm honest, I've done it with my kids too.
There's some sort of parent gene that just causes it to happen. Just some sort of pointer variable doesn't go to the right spot.
Kids' names and parents are stored as a linked list. That's all there is to it.
That's really funny for people who understand this stuff. But so there's that, but then there's also in the newer era. I love XCOM 2. I can't go back to XCOM 1 because the gameplay just encourages you just to move one space in Overwatch, move one space in Overwatch. And it's just objectively like the right thing to do. And so what?
There are mods for that.
Yeah, well, and that's why I just like XCOM 2, because XCOM 2 I just think is a little better designed for encouraging that. Now, I will admit there's certain things that XCOM 1 does on a story plane that I do like a little bit better. And so I understand people who like going back to the original XCOM as well. Well, not the original, but the original of the remake. It's complicated.
Another thing about the original XCOM that a lot of people like, XCOM 2 did simplify in some ways, but in XCOM Enemy Within, it was basically solved, is the base management. It's like your build order was basically solved, and the only difference in is where's the steam vent, and do I have to restart this map because they didn't give me a steam vent until like the 3rd tier down.
Yeah. And so it's just one of those things that it's interesting because whatever you prefer in XCOM, it's the only version you like. At least that's what I've noticed as far as like streamers and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like there's a lot of animosity. Like I don't feel like this is a war thing. It's just like, oh, you like that version. Okay.
So I'm going to put this out there. I feel like that's the way it is for a lot of strategy game in general, cuz like Civilization, there are so many people that play Civ 4, so many people that play Civ 5.
I tried playing the other Civs. Civ 4 is the only one for me.
See, I've only ever played Civ 1.
Civ 2, Civ 1 and 2. I actually love both Civ 1 and Civ 2.
Civ 1 and 4 are mine.
But
yeah, and it's like
adore Civ 2. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's that. You see this with Fire Emblem as well. There's like strategy games in general. It's
I mean, Final Fantasy Tactics. I didn't like Advanced.
Interesting.
The whole rules system, law system, it was weird. I don't know, I still need to finish
Age of Empires as well. Like, There are some people that really like most people like Age of Empires 2. There are some that really like 3. There are some that really like 4. And it's just that there's fundamental differences, and I think strategy games in particular tend to bring those out because players who like strategy games really like delving deep into specific systems or really latch on to specific systems. And when those get changed, it's like, oh, you changed the thing I liked about it most. This is no longer the same game.
Yeah, because like for me, going to 5 and finding out I can't culture flip cities, I'm just like, I'm out. If I can't as Russia flip Orleans with a performance by Jimi Hendrix, it's just not fun.
Wait, Civ 5's that way?
No, Civ 4 is that way.
Plus, I mean, Leonard Nimoy.
Yes, there's that too.
As someone who's played so much, like, I've played Civ 5 with friends, but I've been playing a lot more Civ 6 on my own. I prefer 6, but that's also the one that I really got into first. I think if I had gotten into Civ 5 or Civ 4 earlier, I might have, latched onto those ones.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually bought the more recent Civs, and I haven't played them yet, and I don't know which one I want to play, but everything I've seen says, oh, if you're a fan of 2, you probably would want to play 3 and not like 4 or 5.
Interesting.
But I don't know. I haven't actually played the newer ones.
I will say it's also one of those games where a lot of reasons why people don't switch over initially is because once you have all the DLC for a particular Civ game, going to a new Civ game without any DLC feels barren. Kind of like for people going from like a Sims game to a new Sims game without the DLC.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's an interesting one, the Sims series.
I was thinking SimCity is actually the one that came to me.
Like it's just such an odd concept to begin with, and it's like, hey, what was the next Sim City? Was it just another Sim City, or was Sim Ant next? I can't remember.
SimCity 2000.
Well, 2000 was a big step up.
Sim Tower is underappreciated.
There was Sim Farm. I had a friend who played that one quite a bit.
Yeah, there's apparently even more than I realized. I had no clue.
Yeah.
So I have another series, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, we can.
So this one, I feel like even the developers realized how bad it was that its sequel isn't called number 2. It got a new name, and the entire series is known by the new name, and not that many people remember its original name.
Are you talking about Demon Souls?
No, I'm talking about Soul Edge.
What?
Is that Soul Calibur?
Edge.
Yeah,
Soul Calibur. Its sequel was Soul Calibur.
Series was Soul Edge, and that's not just the legendary weapon.
The original game for the PS1 was Soul Edge, and it was jank. Oh my goodness! But then the next console generation, where they had better graphics, they made a sequel and went to Soul Calibur. Because the 2 legendary weapons in that series are the Soul Edge and the Soul Calibur, right? But the first game was Soul Edge. Not that many people played it, and it looked jank. It played jank. I just happened to run across it in an internet cafe. I'm like, wait, Soul Edge, as in like Soul Calibur? And I popped it in and played with my friends at this internet cafe. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that Soul Calibur wasn't the first in the series, and this game is awful
by design
to make you forget.
So it's like, I honestly think they did just want you to forget about Soul Edge, and that's why they named it Soul Calibur. And Soul Calibur is a great game, and it became a pretty big series.
Sometimes you just need a clean release.
But it started as Soul Edge on the PS1, and I think a lot of people don't know that.
No, the That's a weird. Dang it! We said that, and my brain went somewhere, and I lost it. Dang it! It's gone. It's gone. I lost it.
Slice lost his mind.
Well, that happened a long time ago. No.
So one that I saw on your thumbnail, if that's where you're going, or if you wanted to save that for later, Metroid.
Yeah, we had. Yeah, it's weird. Metroid had 2 games that I can't believe got a sequel.
Oh yeah, seriously. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, this is the one I thought you were talking about when you said XCOM.
Yeah, no. Yeah, this one's interesting because now it has a different thing because the second game, the reason it's held back is because it moved to Game Boy.
Yep.
And so it had different limitations it had to deal with. But it's one of those things, if you like Metroid, which I do, going back to the first one, it's not good. But partially that's because the third game in the series is upheld as maybe one of the best games ever made.
Oh yeah.
My favorites of all time.
Well, I mean, when Metroid came out, it actually was so unique of a game that it got played a lot and it was popular. But I mean, it has some serious issues. But yeah, once you've played Super Metroid, it's like going back to it. It's just like, oh my goodness, this game is
to the point where it named a genre.
Yeah,
like people are chasing that dragon still to this day.
Mm-hmm.
You could also throw in Castlevania 2 for that matter.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Between Metroid and Castlevania 2, that's what created that whole genre. Those 2 games.
Yeah. The Metroid one's interesting though.
So rough around the edges.
But
rough.
The Metroid one is interesting to me just because, like, if you look at that original box art, I can't remember the number, but like, it's bragging about how big the game is, and the number's just embarrassingly small by any. Like, it was embarrassingly small by the mid 90s, but it's fine. But it was just like, how did they make the game so big? We reused a lot of assets, so all the rooms look the same. So you will get lost. Well, that's okay. You have a map, right? No.
Right?
No, there's no map. And like, some of your progression, it's like, I don't know, start shooting random tiles in the ceiling.
I mean, oh gosh.
Even if you know where you're going, trying to figure out how to get there effectively is so bad. And the worst thing about the original Metroid is that you can collect, like, 12 energy tanks or something?
Yeah.
And so you have, 1,200 energy. If you die ever, or, turn off the game and have to reload, you start at 30, no matter what your cap is.
Yep.
Now, it did have a very good save system, and by that I mean a password system.
Are we allowed to call password systems good save systems anymore?
For its time, I mean,
No. For its time, no, because we had Final Fantasy and with Zelda.
Legend of Zelda.
But
did we have Legend of Zelda by that time?
But you had to have special batteries for that inside the cartridge, which is interesting. Ooh. Now, a lot of people's batteries are failing.
The Pokemon problem, especially for Gen 2, which requires the batteries for the day-night cycle gimmicks.
Yep. And so it's an interesting problem, but no, it's one of those things that, so why did Metroid keep getting games? And it goes back to what we've been talking about the entire time. There's a core concept there that works, and it needs refinement. And once it is refined, what you get is a Super Metroid.
And
yeah.
Oh yeah.
For being as jank as it was, and for having the limitations that it did, Metroid 2 was able to pull off some astonishing
on the
feats.
Game Boy.
Yeah, on the Game Boy.
I mean, yeah, Metroid 2's. I mean, it is rough. There's a lot of bad to that game, but there's actually a lot of good about that game too.
It was also the progenitor of the Varia suit
Oh yeah,
because
because they
couldn't
had to make a
change colors.
graphical change.
yeah.
in
They
order
couldn't
to,
just get away with color
They couldn't just
change.
get away with color change. They had to make it a graphical change so you knew the difference between the suits.
Those good old shoulder pads.
It was the 80s.
Would not have them without Metroid 2.
No, but it's just one of those things. It's, we've brought it up before how limitations, breed creativity. And it's interesting on this list to see how they saw those limitations and figured out ways around it in the future.
It's also something where there's a phrase that gets bounced around with a lot of games of like, oh, it needed more time in the oven. Well, a lot of these games were very experimental, and their time in the oven was let's release, get feedback, and then get money, and then like work on a sequel because we're already too far down this rabbit hole to really make any fundamental changes, or the technology's not there yet, or
And it's funny you say that. Is that sort of one of the big advantages I'd say right now of the indie scene is, especially with the early release model, they're kind of living off that entire idea of just release it and then we'll get feedback and we'll sand off the edges.
We'll fix it in post.
Well,
it's not perfect, but
yes.
it's created some great gems.
Yeah. Well, and it's just it's a thing that we're talking about, like what is the AAA game industry lost nowadays? A lot of it is the experimental nature because when you're a large studio, you can't afford to sit there and experiment too much because you have a lot of overhead. You need to keep that wheel churning in order to be able to afford all these people.
And when you already take 3 to 5 years to make a game, if you're lucky, if it's on schedule 3 to 5 years,
yeah,
it's a lot harder to justify doing a lot bigger, like more experimental ideas, even though that's what these game brands were built off of, being experimental, failing sometimes, but then eventually finding a way to make it work.
But that's the big advantage the indies have right now, and I think it's leading to a new golden age.
Here's hoping.
It might be leading to a new golden age, but it has to crash first.
Look, you got to transmute that lead first. Look, it'll happen.
I'm discovering the joy of fan games.
Really?
That is such an interesting.
There are some real gems in the works right now. Like currently, I am currently playing Castlevania Revamped, which
we can hear
the original Castlevania. Can you?
Oh,
I got my headphones on.
Click, click, click,
No,
click,
it's
click.
the keyboard.
click.
But it takes the first Castlevania game and turns it into a proper Metroidvania.
Fun.
First. Interesting.
Well,
yeah, Fire Emblem scene is surviving almost solely off of Fire Emblem fan games and ROM hacks and whatnot right now because...
Wait, did they just have a game come out?
Yes. They continue to have games come out, but that was also like over a year ago, and the community is very split on whether any of the new Fire Emblem games are actually any good or not. I'm not going to get into that right now, but...
Well, this might be a good time to transition to promoting ourselves.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Mithril, why don't you promote getting into it with Fire Emblem discussions?
Getting into it with Bennett Fox. No. Yeah, so I do a lot of Fire Emblem game design top level discussion, where I go in to different units or different game design concepts. I have a video coming out this Saturday talking about Dark Deity, a indie game totally just like copying Fire Emblem's homework. and the things that it changes that it does well are interesting, and the things that it really kind of fails at, and ultimately my frustration because it's a buggy mess that hard crashes so many times that I can't play it. YouTube.com/MithralZenith, check it out.
All right, Breakfast, do you have anything you want to promote? Like maybe this Castlevania thing you're doing?
If you want to go back and look at fighting game retrospectives, Thorgy's Arcade is a great channel for sort of thing. Bear in mind, his videos are hours in length. He goes into depth about the development.
How's that spelled?
Thorgi.
All right. That's my jam. I love hours-long documentaries. All right. Ludisar.
I was going to point out there was this really fantastic essay I once read about Metroid 2 called "A Maze of Murderscapes," and it was like one of the best deep dives into what made Metroid 2 a great game. But it seems to be gone now. You could probably find it on the Wayback Machine, but because it apparently got taken down at some point, I don't know when.
Darn.
I'll say GameDev.tv, where you can buy some classes to learn game development if you want to be part of the indie golden age. I've been taking classes and enjoying it.
All right. Baggins is.
I'll promote the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. If you like Brandon Sanderson, if you like fantasy novels, if you like nerds on the internet discussing literary topics, the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies specifically focuses on Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere series. It's me and Splice and a friend of ours named Amy, and it's definitely worth checking out.
I agree. I also think you should check out twitch.tv/splicestream, as that is where I stream. We're going to be doing some Beeble Raid Boss Tower, more Video Game 20 questions. I am currently working on my other YouTube channel, Trivial Video Gaming. I've got the entire script written for my first video. Going to be getting that out here soon. So, yeah.